You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. No, you can't?
No, we can't hear it. Yeah.
How about now? No.
Now we should.
Yeah, now I can hear it.
We'll see. How about now? No. Done. How about now? We'll do it this way. Hopefully the buzzing is minimal with this one as well. I don't know. So I'm Erin Bulk, one of the Agile coaches, for those who, this is their first session. Out of Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and I've been practicing Agile officially for just over a decade. So I'm here to do the V word. What'd you think? Did you switch over to help? High school help, ready? So, as we get started, V is for vulnerability. So as we get started, because I'm going to ask you guys to really bring it for this session, to open yourselves up, to be honest with yourselves, maybe dig a little deep. And so we do have a rule. There's one rule. So if it gets you wrong, all right. Okay? This is free of judgment, safe environment. No, I want to just kick it off with that. Teresa mentioned it before, Chris mentioned it yesterday. We're going to share, but it's not you don't get to share someone else's story. Okay, that's up to them if they want to share it, but you don't get to do that. And then just hold things in confidence if that's what's asked. Okay, I see some head nods like, yeah, got it. So I appreciate that, thank you. So we're going to kick this off with a poll out of the gate. So when you hear the word vulnerability or vulnerable, what is the first word that comes to mind? So pull out those smart devices. You can go to Polev or text AgileCamp to that number. So as these are coming up, you see scary, fear. I think I saw weakness, weak, wrong, embarrassment, judgment, right? These are all natural things when we think about being vulnerable. What is it?
Sin. Hashtag sin.
I know. You will be trending. I can talk the lingo. Okay? Yeah. Hashtag Simpsons, hashtag one-time AgileCamp. So afraid, shy, brave, I love the cheese. Someone must be ready for lunch because I'm what's holding you in between you and lunch. So thank you for doing this. Because this is being vulnerable. This is what we think of when we hear that word, right? I had a little story to tell. So Chris and I did a workshop to the, I don't know what to call them, traditional, Nelnet, historical, I don't know, the DTMs in March or April, and afterwards I was talking to Rodney Peffer, who's one of the DTMs, and I said, I don't understand why we can't just be open with one another and share, right? And Rodney goes, well, because I was talking, he looked up the textbook, the definition of vulnerability. He's like, this might be it. The state of being vulnerable or exposed. Exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. Yeah, I can see why we might shy away. This is what the definition says, right? Yuck. Not cool. Not cool. So I started thinking, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, you know, as we're entering in, you know, we're embracing Agile and teams and sharing and understanding one another. Don't we need to be vulnerable? Don't we need to open up? You know, crack just a little bit? So that's how this was born. So you're welcome. You can thank Rodney. I think it's rodney.pepper@nelnet.net. It starts with a P. So who's heard of Brene Brown? Yeah. So Brene Brown's got some awesome stuff. She is actually a research professor at the University of Houston, and this is her specialty, vulnerability. So we're just going to watch a quick video from Brene. Cool.
So I think the biggest myth about vulnerability is that it's weakness. I think a lot of people were raised to believe that. It was modeled, I think, certainly in our culture. We see that a lot, that to be vulnerable, to be open, to be exposed is to be weak. And the truth is, you know, what I found in my research is that vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, I would argue that it's our greatest measure of courage. When we went out and asked people, what is vulnerability? We heard things like, vulnerability is the first date after my divorce. Vulnerability is starting my own company. Vulnerability is taking responsibility for something that went wrong at work. Vulnerability is sitting with my wife who has stage 3 breast cancer and making plans for our young kids. Vulnerability is taking my business public. You know, the definition I use in my work of vulnerability is simply uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Vulnerability is about the willingness to show up and to be seen even when there are no guarantees. And it's interesting to me, I mean, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, I gave a talk, it's probably a couple of years now, and it was being translated by people doing American Sign Language, and they came up before the talk started and they said, are there any words that you're going to use a lot in your talk that we should know about that might be different? And I said, well, I use the word vulnerability a lot. And they kind of, there were two of them, they kind of looked at each other and they said, oh, we do this for vulnerability. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, it means weaken the knees. And I'm like, wow, that's not how I talk about vulnerability. And she said, well, there's only one other sign for vulnerability. And I said, what is it? And she said, and I said, oh, that's what I'm talking about. And so, to me, vulnerability is our most accurate measure of courage. I mean, it's pretty powerful when I have 13,000 pieces of data collected over 12 years that I cannot find a single incident or story of courage that was not completely underpinned by vulnerability. I think the problem arises that there's so many little paradoxes with vulnerability, and one of them is that vulnerability is courage in you, but weakness in me. When I meet you, it's the first thing I look for in you, but it's the last thing I want to show you in me. And so I think to really put ourselves out there, knowing that if we do that enough, we're going to fail, I just don't think it gets more courageous than that.
So how true is that? Right? It's what I want from you, but I'm not. I can't do it. I don't want you to be open and honest with me, but going back to expectations, right, from first day. So it's what I expect from you, but don't expect it from me. There's fear, right? It's scary. And that's okay. Superheroes. So, who can name Superman's vulnerability? Kryptonite. Ding, ding, ding. What about Wonder Woman? It's actually her bracelets. If they touch, then it cancels everything out and actually damages her, hurts her. Who else is up here? Aquaman.
Away from water.
Yeah, he can't. It's like an hour or something. Breathing in that water. Cool. Green Lantern. Special effects, is that what I heard? Yellow. Who said that? Nice job. Out of the 3 camps, that's the only one. Yellow. I actually had to look it up because I couldn't remember. So thank you, Aaron.
It's not working.
So what makes the team strong? Combinations. Do they know one another's vulnerabilities? Yeah. And by that, then they're able to leverage one another's strengths, perhaps? Think about your team. Do you know one another's vulnerabilities? And are able to leverage one another's strengths? To a certain degree, maybe? Huh. So, going back to Brene for just a moment, thinking about redefining vulnerability then, because that other one was yucky. Doing it from that open stance. So opening up your heart, opening up your chest, and being, well, open. How do you redefine vulnerability in a word? Courage, strength, bravery. I like the one that's sticking out to me here is available, right? And I'm interpreting that because I can, I have light. So available potentially to new opportunities, right? Opening yourself up to what's out there. I don't know who put that in, but thank you. Giving. So looking at this word cloud versus the other one, how does this one look? Better. This one looks way better. Possibilities. Looks, I'm like, man, we can do all kinds of stuff. If we don't hold on to these words, right? So thank you. Oh, Simmons, no hashtag. I was like, you're not trending anymore. That was fast. So I just jotted down some based on what I thought, and it is right in line with what you guys are saying. So expose the possibility of uncertainty, innovation, creativity, and change, right? That's that being available. That's why I like that one. The opportunities that are out there. Without fear of negative consequence. And this is going to show up a couple times, right? Without fear. So, being able to be vulnerable and stand alone when needed. Being able to share your weakness. What are they? You know? A couple years ago, I did a session on growth mindset. And who's heard of Carol Dweck? I read any of her stuff? A couple. So Carol Dweck, she's a psychology professor at Stanford University. And she has done years and years and years of study, like we're talking a few decades, on mindset in kids and learning. And has broken it down into a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And so what happens with fixed mindset is we have that fear. We have that fear of failing. We don't, we know what we know, and we don't want to put ourselves out there with fear of judgment. Sharing our weaknesses. Whereas in growth, so they kind of plateau. Fixed mindset, plateau. Whereas growth mindset, they're okay. Failure is hard at any point in our lives. But being open to learning from that, being open to sharing their weaknesses, and even their strengths, allows them to propel and continue to learn and learn and learn. Acknowledging other strengths. Acknowledging those around you. Whether it's friends, family, teammates. Giving trust. One of my favorite quotes, because I don't like the earning trust thing. Best way to get trust is just to give it. Just give it. You think about your kids, right? Or close friends and things like this. Something goes wrong, maybe, I don't want to say it never happens, but You don't generally just cut people out of your lives or say, well, I'll never trust you again, ever. Right? I think about my kids. Something happened actually just a couple weeks ago with my 6-year-old. And I was like, kiddo, I'm disappointed. I am. And I shared that with her, but also told her that, I trust her, and I'll always love her no matter what. Right? But I didn't cut her off and say, well, you have to earn my trust back. So best way to get trust is just to give it, and then work through it, have the conversations. We talked a lot about having I think it was, I don't know, someone talked about it, just having the open conversation, the open dialogue when needed. So being vulnerable isn't a bad thing, but why is it perceived as a bad thing? Why, you guys challenge me, why can we be vulnerable in our personal lives more often than not, but when we come to work, we can't be vulnerable? Why is that?
Fear of losing your job.
Fear of losing your job.
Lack of trust.
Lack of trust. Have we been trained that way through the years, maybe? That's the environment, right? You're here to do a job. You're not here to share your emotions or, be open like that. We have a job to do. I gotta tell you, as I've been doing this, I started to realize that I'm exhausted. Being multiple people is exhausting. Showing up in different situations is exhausting, isn't it? I find that exhausting. So, your willingness to be vulnerable becomes a strength that helps others share responsibility with you and build their own confidence and self-reliance. Isn't that awesome? So your willingness to show up allows others to show up. It's got to start with somebody. I also want to just touch on one of Nelnet's core values, and I'll admit I don't know them all. But one of them is open and honest communication. Can you have open and honest communication without being a little vulnerable to that conversation? It's tough. Try it and report back. Tell me if you can do it. Give me some pointers then. Right? Being vulnerable, just be a human. We're all great humans. We're all different. We show up differently. That's okay. That's what makes us awesome. We're not robots. We're not programmed to think the same. Right? So, who's heard of Patrick Lencioni? 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Pyramid. Yeah. So, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, he talks about that base layer being trust. And then above trust is conflict, and then commitment, accountability, and results. But he also talks about this. He talks about this vulnerability-based trust. So that's where he talks about that lack of fear of consequence, fear of judgment. Trust is built when someone is vulnerable and not taken advantage of. That goes completely 180 degrees from the definition we saw on that first slide home. Right? Being open to one another. In case the sheets are still on the table, but openness is actually one of the strong values. It's there. You can check me. It's there. And then I love this. Sometimes you don't realize your own strength until you come face to face with your greatest weakness. We're all still here and we're all still alive, but we're all still alive. But we've all had challenges in our lives, I'm guessing. Didn't kill us because we're all still here and we're still breathing. Right? So you had to get through that. You had to open up. You had to get through some of this. There's been tough times, I can imagine, for each and every one of us. And we figured out how to get through it, right? And that's when you figure out your strength, is as you're going through some of that stuff. Okay, ready? Yeah. So, what we're going to do, I want you to do a little journaling. So I want you to think about, Kyle talked about on Tuesday, if you're here for PALS, you talked about, talk about a failure or something like that. I want you to even dig a little bit deeper than that. Something that you spent mental energy on. Whether it was a failure, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was a conversation you had and you didn't like the outcome, or you should have said this, or you should have said that. Are there opportunities in your life that you want to explore, that you're thinking about exploring, or you would love to have in your life, going back to what Chris and I were talking about yesterday? But it's going to be hard, and you'll have to open yourself up. You have to try new things, and you may have to have hard conversations. Or, we talked about being on your journey and being on your path. You may have to let some things go. Letting go is hard. It's really hard. So I want you to think about that as you think about your strengths and weaknesses. That makes sense? So think about something that you want, an opportunity, or was a failure, and then write down your strengths and weaknesses. I'll give you a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay. You guys got some strengths and weaknesses and maybe an opportunity you're looking at. So, a couple of you writing, so I know somebody did it. So now, we get to share. Okay? So, at your tables, if you can do a triad, try 3, or pairs. Just so we can have smaller conversations rather than big table conversations. So a little more intimate. I know we're sitting on the same table, it's going to be tough. But I want you to share. I want you to share first off, what your strengths and weaknesses are that you've identified. And then, the people that are with you, they're not gonna judge, they're not gonna comment, but they might offer up, you know what else I see in you? I see this. I see this. I see this. Right? And share if there's an opportunity that you're looking at that you want to go after. Go, yeah, you know what? Here's what you can also, this might be something to think about as well. Or, you know what? I don't know that truly is a weakness. You challenge one another. Now, the most difficult part of this is not even sharing. It's actually receiving that information. How hard is it to receive a compliment? Who goes, yeah, cool, thanks. Yeah, they did all the work. You know, it wasn't me. It's really hard to receive compliments or positive thoughts towards you. Or is that just me? It's tough. It's tough. So you need to get ready to receive that information because people assume good intent. People generally have good intent, right? And so when I say receive, it means like buckle down and get ready. I had a coach who, in a class that I was at, and when she's coaching and she's in sessions, they joke that she is like ready to receive a kid, because when she's one-on-one and she's in it, she's just like, okay, I'm ready, give it to me. She's ready to receive, like she plants her feet, she grounds herself, because it is hard. We have to open ourselves up even just to receive positive thoughts. We're not turning our hip and, going back to body line with Holly and I, like turning our hip and being closed off. Be open to it. Open your chest. Okay? Does that make sense, what I'm asking? Share your strengths and weaknesses with one another. Your opportunity you might be looking at. We're not here to give advice, but just recognize who that person is. Okay? Alright. Thumbs up. Head nod. Wink. I'll give you, I'm going to set the timer. I'll let you know when we're about halfway through the time. If you're in a group of 3, then, you should maybe speed up if you're only the first person to talk, but I'll let you know. I'll shout it out. All right? Okay. Go. Did you say blackmail? No, okay, good. Remember the first rule. So we talked about at the beginning. Judging, right? But what was good about that?
Feedback.
Feedback. Right?
Therapeutic.
It was therapeutic.
Once it's started, it's hard to stop.
Ah, yeah, right? Kind of opens those gates, right? It feels good. It feels good to have those conversations. You know, it's amazing when actually we're open to others' perspectives, what they can provide for us. Right? Does anyone get that? You know, someone else will go, wow, you know.